Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you today for the Glass spoiler review. So I'm gonna go through what happened in Glass and let you know what I thought of this. But fair warning, if you guys have not seen this movie, do not watch this spoiler review. If you have seen it, then I'll continue on. Now, in the beginning, it shows David Dunn's part. It's the first act where David Dunn's trying to stop vigilantes. And in the beginning, it pretty much showed someone punching someone, and then it was like a Superman punch that he did or something, and they ran away, and then David Dunn went after them and stopped them, and then he goes back to his store, the Dunn storage store, and meets up with his son again. And then they discover that there's something happening in a factory on the other side of town or whatever, and that they're looking for 4 girls that went missing. So David Dunn goes out on a search the next day and looks for them, and then he comes across someone who is Kevin Wendell Crumb, known as the Beast as well. But he comes across him, but before that, you see Kevin Wendell Crumb roller skating around them, saying the Beast is coming for you at any minute now, and all that. James McAvoy does a great job impersonating his character and really getting into his role. But after a little ways into the movie, David Dunn touches the guy that passes by, Kevin Wendell Crumb, and he sees a vision of them being kidnapped and him talking to the girls, and then he's like, yeah, I know where they are now. He tells his son in the microphone, and then he goes to rescue them, and then that's where he points out where he's hiding, and he's climbing on a wall, or moving on a wall or whatever towards them, and then he jumps down and then throws a table at David, and then he tells the girls to leave, and then he throws it back, and then they get into their fight, David and the Beast, known as Kevin Wendell Crumb. And then he squeezes onto David, and then David does some rash thinking real quick, and they both go out the window, and then it's raining out, and they try to finish the fight, and then these hypnotic lights go off, or blinking lights go off, or whatever, and Kevin Wendell Crumb's back to his normal self, and he's like, what's going on? All that. And they get kidnapped by Sarah Paulson and taken to a medical hospital for a psych ward or whatever. That's where the movie gets into the psych ward part, the second act of the movie. And they walk into the psych ward, and pretty much they encounter Elijah, and Sarah Paulson's greeting David and Kevin at the same time, and saying, I believe that superheroes don't exist and all that it's a fantasy, that you're making it up and all that. So she's trying to believe that they're delusional or whatever, and they're really not. They're definitely superheroes, but towards most of the movie in it, you encounter Elijah, and he's not really talking, he's just silent. And one of the nurses says, "You won't be alone anymore, you have 2 new friends." And that's where Elijah starts discovering what the beast is. Well, I'll get to that part shortly. After a little ways in the movie, they're still in the psych ward. They go into this last evaluation room, and both Kevin and David Dunn are in there, and then here comes Elijah coming in there on the wheelchair. And then Sarah Paulson's there talking to them about that she thinks that they're believing they're superheroes, but they're or super villains, superheroes, or superhuman or whatever, but they're not. And then Joseph tries to convince Sarah Paulson to get back his dad, but it doesn't happen. And then that's where Casey comes in, Anya Taylor something, can't remember her last name, but she comes in and tries to talk to Kevin, and there were some funny scenes in it, and pretty much I'll get back to the evaluation room in just a second. She tries to get Kevin to come into the light mostly, and most of the Kevin's personalities are taken over and pretty much just going fanatical or whatever. And then sorry about that, I'm hesitating a little, but now to the evaluation room, where Sarah Paulson tries to get Kevin Wendell Crumb into the light, and he does. And then she talks to David Dunn afterwards, and she says, "How do you get these feelings? Convince me," and all that. And he's like, "It's a feeling, a vision, and I have to touch people to see," or whatever. And then she talks to Elijah after that. And then we come into the next part where Elijah gets out of his room and is just moving around the place and trying to just recruit the beast, Kevin Wendell Crumb, to join his team, to be partners, and to destroy a building that they're going after, some tower. And they do actually escape. It just takes a little time because most of the movie's in the psych ward, and in the hospital mostly. And they do escape. Kevin Wendell Crumb and Elijah do escape. But before I get to the closing of this movie, there's one scene in here that I thought was not too bad, where the beast is crawling on the wall, and then he jumps down and talks to Elijah, and then he's like saying, "That sounds like the bad guys are joining teams," or whatever, and saying, "Are you with me, partner?" And then he jumps down and kills the nurse, and pretty much, basically, it gets into the closing part of the movie where David Dunn has to stop Elijah from achieving his master plan and trying to go to that building. But Elijah kind of overthinks things and takes precautions at hand if it doesn't succeed, if he doesn't escape. So Kevin is trying to help him escape too by beating up the hospital security and all that and stopping them. And they do make it outside, and then David Dunn comes to the rescue and tries to stop Kevin from hurting people, and they get into a fight for a little while, and then that's where Joseph steps in and tells Kevin that Mr. Glass, or Elijah, killed your father on the same train that David was on 19 years ago or whatever. And that's where Kevin says, I'm done with you and all that, and he breaks Mr. Glass's shoulder and then punches him in the stomach, and yeah. Then they get into their fight again, and he throws David in the tank, and then he joins in with him, and then David tries to get out of it by breaking the tank with his fists. And that happens, and then David's weakness is water, so he's just crawling around. And then Kevin's, or the Beast, is trying to escape, and then Casey stops him by touching his hand and then holding him. And then he gets out of that personality, the Beast, and then he gets shot. And yeah, then David gets drowned by what is it? I'll have to come back at you for one more part to close this. Pretty much, this movie, the ending, I hated it, where they all died. Where David and Elijah and the Beast, Kevin Wendell Crumb, die. And then Sarah Paulson thinks she succeeded, and there's this organization with the black tattoo or whatever that stopped them from achieving their master plan to escape, to go to the tower to blow it up. And Elijah just set them up and set up Sarah Paulson, and pretty much had a master plan all along, that it was a suicide mission and that he wasn't planning on escaping. And Sarah Paulson she got screwed over. And then that's where they leaked the videos for what happened at this asylum. And yeah, that is going to be it for this spoiler review. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was like a long video, so thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in my next video tomorrow.